Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zane here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online VGC 15 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. We're just going to hop onto the ladder, currently with a rating of 1866 after taking a loss in the last game of last episode. So we're going to see if we can pick up 2 wins in a row in today's episode to maybe put us back over the 1900s. Continuing to use Mark McCohen's World Championship winning team in the seniors division. It's been really fun featuring Mark's team. If you guys want to give him a follow, check him out on Twitter at Whoopahking. That's WOOPAHKING. We're probably going to be moving on to a new team soon. Going to find Timon from Spain with a rating of 1809 to kick this episode off, so going to be fun playing against an 1800 plus rated player. As always, if you guys enjoy Road to Rank, please show your support by leaving a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, Timon here is rocking a sand team, pretty similar to the sand team that I've used earlier on, with the Excadrill here though. So, Tyranitar, Amoonguss, Salamence, Excadrill, Aegislash, and Milotic here being the real big one, because Rotom Wash really used to be in that slot. So, the Sand matchup here isn't too bad, especially because I do have the Landers here, but the the Milotic here makes a big difference for my opponent because it means I can't just spam Landers T, and that's going to be really good for my opponent. So, I do have to play around that, and that's going to be definitely a little bit tricky. Let's see, setting up Trick Room would definitely be helpful here, especially because Charizard can just come in and Heat Wave things. But figuring out what to lead with here is quite difficult. For example, I think Salamence Milotic would be a really solid lead on my opponent's end, in which Cresselia is the only Pokemon that can deal with that even properly. So, maybe the question right now I'm asking is, what Pokemon do I not want to bring into this matchup? Because all the Pokemon definitely have advantages. I'm a champ here to just knock out Tyranitar and Excadrill. You know what? I think I'm going to lead Cresselia here. And I kind of actually like it next to Sylveon. Actually, maybe Machamp even. Yeah, I guess if my opponent doesn't lead Mence, then Machamp can wreak havoc on my opponent's team. And if my opponent does lead Mence, then Crest can just kind of Trick Room up. I still definitely want Landers in this matchup. And I think Charizard here is still essential for the Weather War. So I'm going to lock in and we're going to see how this battle goes. But this is definitely going to be a little bit tricky, especially with the Milotic on my opponent's end. Perhaps something I could have done a bit better just now in Team Preview is predict what my opponent doesn't want to bring. For example, I think Amoonguss here probably won't see an appearance. I don't know. Would you bring the Salamence here? As time runs out, I'm not sure if my opponent actually got his team in time there, but let's see. Should be an exciting one. The Sand matchup is always pretty interesting, and a lot of players actually have been still using Sand at the regional championships that we had this past fall. Some players opting to go back to Excadrill. I ran Porygon too at the regional that I went to, but it looks like we actually see the Tyranitar and the Salamence lead here, so this is a little bit helpful since I'll be able to figure out what item the Tyranitar has immediately. And the Intimidate goes off first, so probably not Scarf Tar, which is definitely good to note. But this is already a little bit tricky. So obviously Machamp wants to get right out of here. So I could just switch out into Landorus and Trick Room, or go for the Ice Beam into Salamence. I think I'm just going to Ice Beam into Mence and switch out into my Landorus here. Landorus definitely appreciates being switched in here. Don't want to set up Trick Room too early, mainly because Tyranitar can actually potentially take advantage of that. And right now my goal is to eliminate Salamence, because once Salamence goes down, then my Machamp has a much better time in this matchup. Especially given that Tyranitar really can't do anything against Machamp. So the real question here is, does Salamence protect? It does Mega Evolve, so that does give it the speed boost. But what does it go for? Given that Tyranitar is not Scarf, I could actually just see a Hyper Voice, target here. But Double Edge comes out from that Mence, targeting Cresselia. So good move there. Gonna take recoil damage, so if I survive the attack here from Tyranitar, which is gonna be a crunch, so as long as no critical hit here, I will be able to survive with Cresselia. We'll be able to get an Ice Beam off against the Salamence. So that's great. Plays out perfectly for me here. Crest gets the Ice Beam off. Is it enough to knock out Salamence? It almost picks up the knockout here, but the Sand damage will be enough, since Mark's Cresselia is a bit bulkier. However, like I mentioned, I really wanted to eliminate Salamence from the game just because that means that my Machamp now has a much better matchup, so I'll take that turn 1 there, especially since Tyranitar had Crunch and not Assurance. So, this Tyranitar looks like it's physically built. I don't know if it has Ice Beam, maybe it has Ice Punch, but typically when you're not running Scarf Tar, you run Crunch / Assurance, Rock Slide, and then a fighting move like Low Kick or Superpower, and then Protect. Sometimes maybe going for Dragon Dance. I know Sekium over in Spain used a sand team like this, and he ran Dragon Dance Lum Tyranitar with a Swagger. But looks like Aegislash is coming out for my opponent. So the wide guard here is quite obvious. I could just Superpower into Tyranitar. I'm gonna Skill Swap and Superpower in case the Tyranitar switches out here. Although I guess Tyranitar could have... It most likely has Tropical Berry, actually. Either way, though, I'm okay with this because by eliminating... Tyranitar protects here. Okay, good play by my opponent. Does Aegislash go for the... I mean, it's not going to wide guard here, so I kind of walked into that, but it could potentially have a... have weakness policy, so I didn't want to just give it that kind of boost. So let's see what it goes for. It's going to go for the Shadow Ball here, probably into Landorus if you're smart. Yep. But you see how good that Assault Vest is. I'm able to survive with a lot of health remaining. So I kind of want to go for the Earthquake here. Yeah, I'm going to Earthquake. I don't want to decrease my attack or my defense. And if Aegislash, doesn't King Shield, then it means a free switch into my Charizard in the back. So I'll Ice Beam the Aegislash slot just to get maybe some free damage, and I'll Earthquake here. Another move my opponent can make is just switching Tyranitar out. Now, we don't know my opponent's fourth one, but I definitely feel pretty solid right now. Tyranitar actually switches out. So maybe Aegislash here is going to King Shield. Oh, it's Excadrill coming in. Well, a better wide guard. No! Wow! My opponent just letting me Earthquake there, hoping that I would Superpower the Tyranitar slot. That's not going to be the case, and I pick up the one-hit KO there onto Aegislash. Excadrill here does have the Focus Sash, so does hang around for a little bit longer, but since I Ice Beam, Excadrill is also going down. I'm really not sure what my opponent was trying to go for there. Perhaps doesn't have the the Tropical Berry on Tyranitar, so expecting the Superpower, hoping that I would just Superpower into that slot and go for the Shadow Ball. But I figured Earthquake was a relatively low-risk play, because after you Wide Guard, of course, you can't King Shield with guaranteed chance. So I know that I could force the Aegislash to stay into Blade Form, most likely, hoping that Tyranitar would Rock Slide to pick up the knockout onto Cresselia. Then I get a free switch into either my Machamp or my Charizard, both having very good matchups. So, that play basically gave me the game, honestly. But eliminating Salamence from the beginning of the game, my opponent doubling up into Cresselia was all very, very instrumental in me winning this one on a pretty one-sided battle, honestly. But looks like Tyranitar here actually still does outspeed the Landorus, so it gets the Rock Slide off here. Maybe it is Choice Scarf Tar. Oh, no, it can't be Choice Scarf Tar. He revealed the Protect. So, no Tropical Berry there either. Rock Slide doesn't get the flinch there. Doesn't actually even knock out Cresselia. So, of course, this Landorus is pretty slow because it is Assault Vest with the Adamant nature. So Tyranitar there maybe running max speed, but my opponent unfortunately not picking up a knockout there or a flinch, and I'm going to be able to take the first game in relatively quick fashion there. Honestly, knocking out the Salamence there basically ensured me to have a very good chance of winning this game. Surprisingly, Milotic didn't make an appearance, and that was the Pokemon I was talking about most in Team Preview. But the nice thing about Milotic is, if you have Landorus, you don't want to lead with it, because a lot of the times your opponent might try to catch you off guard, or just expect the Intimidate. So you want to put yourself into a position where if they do bring their physical type attackers, you can just shuffle in Landorus immediately, and if they have Milotic, eliminate it, and then Landorus helps out against the remainder of the team. And Landorus was instrumental for me winning that game. It gave me the Intimidate against the Salamence and the Tyranitar, and the Earthquake put on so much pressure against Excadrill and Aegislash, but I'm really surprised my opponent was just okay with me Earthquaking there, not even seeing a Wide Guard coming out from the Aegislash. So that's how strong Landorus is, especially against those Sand teams, and that's why the Sand team I brought to US Nationals, I actually just got rid of Excadrill outright for Landorus Incarnate form, which can outspeed and get Hidden Power Ices off, because otherwise Landorus can really, really run through your team and you rely on a little bit too much. So, that last game was really Landorus proving its worth, but Cresselia there picking up a knockout early onto Salamence, the double edge recoil damage being really instrumental to me actually picking up the knockout there as well, which is huge. And I felt pretty confident with Machamp and Charizard as my last two, just because Charizard could reverse the weather. Machamp had Wide Guard to avoid any Rock Slides from Tyranitar or Excadrill, and Machamp was just really good in that matchup. For example, Tyranitar really can't touch it. Excadrill maybe has to Iron Head it. Really, when you have Tyranitar and Excadrill out against Machamp, you're basically relying on flinches. Machamp's also really bulky, so it can take Shadow Balls from Aegislash with ease. We're going to find a 1650 opponent from Japan for our next opponent, so hopefully a win here, and then in our next episode we can get back to the 1900s. But this is a really interesting team, and I'm actually a little bit scared since I don't know what to expect. We see basically all Pokemon we never really see that much in VGC. But the Gyarados, the Arcanine, the Slowbro, the not the Cubone, the Marowak, the Hitmonchan, and the Executor. So some fun VGC history for you guys. Sejong Park actually used Marowak at the 2013 World Championships on a Trick Room team. Wolfie Glick used Executor at the 2012 World Championships on his second place finishing team. Sejong lost in the top 8 in 2013, and a really, really close set against Ryosuke Kosuge. And he was actually on my side of the bracket, so we had a chance to play if he won there. So I was a little bit disappointed since this team was really neat. But both of those Pokemon having made appearances at Worlds before at a high level in the World's top 8. Arcanine here has recently done really well, actually. It won a regional championship over in California on Colton Libert's team. Super strong Pokemon, especially with the Intimidate. Dual Intimidate here. Very well maybe a Trick Room kind of option for my opponent's team. I honestly just don't know what to fully expect here because I don't know what the Hitmonchan is carrying or the Slowbro or the Gyarados for that matter. Gyarados or Slowbro being the Mega Evolution on my opponent's team here. So let's see what I want to lead with. I actually kind of like Sylveon as a lead here since Hyper Voice puts on a lot of pressure against everything. Maybe I'll go with Cresselia. Cresselia doesn't even do much here. Though it could reverse Trick Room. Maybe I do want Cresselia. Sylveon. Let's see, the only thing that gives Sylveon trouble kind of is the Arcanine. Maybe I'll go Sylveon, Landorus, Charizard, Machamp. I like that. Yeah, that sounds good. So I'll lock in. We'll see how this goes. But really don't know what to expect. And a lot of the times, you know, these teams operate best in best of one because you don't know what kind of movesets they're carrying or what kind of items. And they're very eccentric and typically creative moves. So pressure's definitely on right from the beginning. But I'm going to go with my Landorus and Sylveon lead to get the Intimidate right away and threaten with my spread attacks. It looks like my opponent here is going to be going with the Slowbro and the Hitmonchan. So I don't mind this lead very much because I get the Intimidate against the Hitmonchan immediately. Sylveon's Hyper Voice threatens both of my opponent's Pokemon, and I can U-turn out immediately with Landorus. So I'm just going to Hyper Voice here expecting Fake Out, and I'm going to U-turn on Slowbro. So we do see the Fake Out coming out right away. Going to target that Sylveon. Good play by my opponent, preventing the Hyper Voice. Landorus is going to get out of here. Doesn't really want to face against Mega Slowbro in general, or normal Slowbro, since Slowbro here did not Mega Evolve. But going to swap out here, and probably actually going to want to bring in my Machamp, since I anticipate Trick Room might be setting up right now. Let's see. Sylveon flinches, and indeed Slowbro goes for that Trick Room. Okay, so part of me is like, maybe I should have brought Cresselia to reverse Trick Room since the Marowak is looking really scary right now. I'm just going to go for another Hyper Voice here. And do I just want to knock off Slowbro? Or do I want to Dynamic Punch the Hitmonchan since I think it might switch out? Let's Dynamic Punch Hitmonchan. I think Hitmonchan should have Wide Guard too, given that the family has it. Hitmontop definitely does. But right now I still don't know really what to expect here. I don't know why my opponent's running Hitmonchan in general. Typically of the Hitmons, you see Hitmontop the most, but none of them are very good in VGC sadly anymore. Hitmontop was very dominant back in 2010, 2012, and 2013 to a slower extent. But it's like Hitmonchan actually does switch out, so that is why I went for the Dynamic Punch onto that slot, and it looks like it's going to be Marowak coming in. That Marowak's not going to be happy. However, the Slowbro here goes for a move of Skill Swap, which is actually, you know, the strategy I've been using with the Cresselia on Mark's team. So Sylveon here does get the Oblivious, but I still get a Hyper Voice and a Dynamic Punch off. That might still be enough to knock out the Marowak. Let's see. More importantly, though, I get the Confusion onto Marowak, and that's what I really need. So I actually miss up on the on the knockout there, but Marowak is confused, and a Confusion hit will KO it itself. So I'm okay with that, and it's already been one turn of Trick Room gone. As free as a turn as I could have got it. And you'd imagine that this position would be significantly worse if I knocked out Slowbro, since Slowbro right now is actually not doing very much. So I'm just going to Hyper Voice here, and I'm just going to go for the knockoff onto the Marowak slot. If it hits itself into Confusion, then it faints. We do see the Ice Beam there. I didn't want to switch into Landorus for that very reason, targeting down the Sylveon there. Let's see if Marowak hits itself in Confusion. If it does, I will be able to basically win this game. Marowak, unfortunately, does hit itself in Confusion. Doesn't actually knock itself out, but Sylveon's faster than Machamp under the Trick Room since Mark ran a really slow Sylveon with Quiet Nature. So Marowak goes down there in one hit, and the knockoff here will knock out Slowbro as well, running the Colbur Berry. So I'm guessing Colbur there is to basically deal with knockoffs, and probably more importantly, knockoff from maybe a Life Orb Bisharp, but that's a pretty interesting item to have, given that Slowbro is so naturally bulky, and Bisharp's not that prevalent in the format anymore. But hey, that's fine with me. So we're up 4-2, and we've still got a bunch of turns of Trick Room left. The Hitmonchan and the Gyarados coming in here. I'm really wondering if it's Mega Gyarados. But fortunately, because I didn't switch Sylveon, now I do get a free switch into my Landers. So I'm going to pull that switch out, and I am going to go for the Dynamic Punch onto the... I kind of want to actually target the Gyarados just for the confusion here. And if it is Mega Gyarados. So I'm going to go for that. The Intimidate here will be really helpful. I'm already up so much and I haven't taken any damage really. So as long as I don't mess up and my opponent doesn't have anything too crazy, you know, I should be able to pull this one out. The Gyarados here could be Mega Gyarados with Dragon Dance, which is what I'm anticipating. And it is going to be Mega Gyarados. So the Dynamic Punch there actually works out in my favor. But presumably we will see a Fake Out into the Machamp slot. So probably won't be able to do anything there. But I am able to bring back the Pixelate onto Sylveon since I did switch it out. Yep, so Fake Out smartly targets the Machamp there. That's the right move to make. And Gyarados here actually just goes for the Waterfall. Into the Landers as well, so nicely done on my opponent's end. Poor Landers there takes a heap and ton of damage there. But it's still looking pretty solid for me. I'm going to bring Sylveon back out. And I'm going to Dynamic Punch the the Gyarados here. That was as good of a play as my opponent could have gotten, but at the same time I don't mind it just because of the fact that right now I just want to get the Intimidates in and make Hitmonchan and Gyarados very, very weak. So I'm going to bring Sylveon back in. We're actually going to see the close combat come out from the Hitmonchan onto the Machamp, but with the Intimidate, really, really bulky. Hitmonchan here is actually super slow too, outspeeding Machamp. No Protect from the Gyarados though ensures that I get the Dynamic Punch off against it. So heal back from the Citrus Berry, Machamp getting this Dynamic Punch off against the Gyarados. Doesn't pick up the knockout because of the Intimidate from the Gyarados, but I do pick up the Confusion here, which is really important. Does it hit itself in Confusion? It unfortunately does. So my opponent not getting very lucky with the Confusion rolls. Trick Room does expire here. So I'm going to actually play it safe. I'm going to Protect, and I'm going to switch out into my Landers here. And basically what I'm protecting is I'm hoping that my opponent picks up the knockout onto Landers. So basically we are in the same position, but I get the Intimidate off, and then suddenly I'm threatening you with both my Sylveon and my Machamp. And if you don't knock out Landers, then I can just switch it in and back out for another Intimidate. So this is just cycling and Intimidates in the late game against these physical attackers. Gyarados actually snaps out of Confusion immediately, but no Dragon Dance coming out here. It's going to smartly enough target down the Landers slot though, so Landers is going to be going down here. But perhaps a little bit late for my opponent to try to win this one. And the Rock Slide coming out from the Hitmonchan. Now I did suspect it would have Rock Slide, so it is good to confirm that it does. So I'll bring out Machamp. And my opponent is going to be fishing for flinches at this point. I don't have much to mitigate that, so I'm just going to Dynamic Punch the Hitmonchan. Basically, Waterfall has to flinch Machamp, then Rock Slide has to flinch Sylveon. But my opponent makes the misplay of targeting Sylveon down there. I'm not sure I quite agree with that, since my Machamp has shown it's faster than Hitmonchan. Of course, unless Hitmonchan does have a Focus Sash. But there you go. There's the Focus Sash. But not to know, you know, of course, it is confused right now, too. So let's see if it hits itself in Confusion. I'm hoping it gets an attack off here. It does get the close combat off. Hey, there we go. Targets down my Machamp, but I'm able to survive that with pretty good ease. And if I get the Hyper Voice off here, it's all over. But Sylveon does flinch, so it does keep my opponent in this one for a little bit longer. I'm just going to go for the Hyper Voice and the Dynamic Punch here onto Gyarados. It's going to be a little bit scary, of course, when your opponent's dealing with the flinches. I don't have a way to stop it. You know, Machamp's Wide Guard is a great way from stopping flinches normally, but we are going to see the Waterfall target Machamp this time around. Good play, but it's not going to be enough to knock me out, and I don't get flinch there. So that's going to seal me the game because Charizard does outspeed the Hitmonchan, as Machamp does as well, and Sylveon here is just going to get a Hyper Voice off. But let's see if, you know, we can see a Rock Slide here from Hitmonchan. It does get the Rock Slide off. There you go. I wonder if that's enough to even knock out Machamp at -2. No, it does 9 damage. And Sylveon gets the Hyper Voice and picks up the win. So we do manage to rebound back from the last episode, and we do pick up 2 wins in today's episode, but not enough to put us over the 1900s since this last opponent was 1650 or so. So should put us around 1885, 1890 or so. But that was definitely a pretty exciting episode for you guys. Kind of one-sided games this time around. I wish we saw more out of that second game. I feel like my opponent just was overextending, hoping that Machamp would target down the Slowbro slot. And one play I was fearing was my opponent actually switching Slowbro out into the Marowak, since, you know, you'd expect me to target down the Hitmonchan slot. But basically the Sylveon lead there in game 2 won me the game, partnered with basically Machamp, honestly. Like, the lead matchup was ideal, since I was able to U-turn out immediately, get that 3 damage onto the Slowbro. The confusion hit on Marowak definitely hurt my opponent a lot. Presumably it was going for a Boomerang or something like that to maybe target one of my 2 Pokemon, but I knew that once Marowak was eliminated from the game, Landorus and Charizard had enough firepower to win me the match, and I knew if he hit himself in confusion there, basically would have been game right there unless he had something really crazy in the back. So would have been cool to see a little bit more out of that team. We did get a little bit lucky with confusion hits, but we take those. Anyway, shorter episode for you guys today, but a really fun one. We do manage to pick up 2 wins in a row. Hopefully we'll be able to continue the streak and jump back into the 1900s in the next episode. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. As always, leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright, peace.